In this video, let us take a look at the client feedback and make changes based on that. Now, the client wants the midground mountains to be slightly smaller and reduce the height of the peak for the background one. So heading into our matte painting, I'll go into the midground folder and hit Ctrl T to transform. I'm going to move the transform point to the section just above the glacier and then try and scale things in. They look much better to what the client notes were. Heading over to the background, selecting my peak and just scaling that in and pushing it down. So now that is done, let us start working on our final details phase. So heading into the background layer and adding a new layer on top of the peak, let us start painting and adding more details to this peak section. Now, the first thing we need to fix here is to add a proper shadow color onto the snow and adding more rocks as well. So slowly using a chalk brush, and since this layer on which I'm painting on is a clipping mask, it's only going to affect that area which is already painted in the peak. Now constantly sampling color values from our current established sections. And give it a form and shape. Some reflected light towards the sides, bumps and cliffs, exposed rocks high up near the peak of the mountain. Continuing to sample and just use the colors to define my shape. Heading over to the lighter side, we need to add some soft shadowing. So let's choose a color around there, warm, as the color of the light is. Sampling the rocks color and painting some rocks along the cliff edge. Now switching over to the clone stamp tool, I'm sampling details from the image below and just adding it on top of my cliff. Now this is a good way to quickly add similar details to what you already have in the painting and then just paint over it to make it look a bit different. As you can see, it's already started to look like a steep peak with the rocks sticking out. One of the points in an image which is quite important is to have a good transition between the light and the shadow side which sells properly. That is, it is believable to the eye. Again, sampling and adding some bounce reflection for that snow and the clouds behind. Turning over back to the light side. Now I'm adding another layer on top. Let's call it paint. And this time I'm not clipping this layer. So this will let me paint on all sections of this image and not just restrict myself to what the peak is. So I can use this layer to tie in my overall background mountain. Again, sampling from different parts of the image and just using that color to paint. Now keeping my shadow color for the snow consistent all across the peak and the nearby areas. Maybe there is a huge gully near the top, some sort of maybe erosional pattern caused by years and years of snow and avalanches. Let's zoom out and take a look at it from a distance. So far so good. Let me add a little bit more definition over to the top. Choosing a really bright color and sampling those values onto our image. So you can see like this is adding more shape or form to the peak, just using it to show those areas which are incident to the angle of the sun. Again, switching over to the clone stamp tool, just quickly stamping in some details, adding small snow bridges and ridges and gullies. So you can see the top part of the peak is now standing out quite well. Let's sample the same color and gently add it to different sections. So now looking over to the side, we have this distinct edge which is kind of causing our image to look bad. So we need to fix it. So let's find out the source of that. And it's the background layer, that's the shadow layer. Adding a layer mask, let us just paint it out. All right, so that's fixed it. Heading back to the paint layer, continuing with our continuing to paint our details. Now I'm just sampling the shadow color of the snow and just adding it in sections to indicate some more form. So in this video, we went over the client notes, made the necessary changes, and started working towards the final. Now, between this and the next video, I'm going to go ahead and continue painting for a few minutes, adding some more details similar to what we have seen so far. And let's pick it up in the next lesson.